introduction. So I am Prakhar Agrawal, and currently I'm working as a software engineer at Google. And why I say that actually data structures and algorithm is it's a very important part to actually stay in the to stay in the industry. If you want to grow in your career, then yes, you should be professional. You should be uh, professionally sound at data structures and algorithms, because if you want to make switch in your careers, or even if you want to grow in your career, you should be well versed with this particular topic. Now, the reason for conducting this session is to help you out, help people like you, where you can I can see that there are people ranging from the freshers, or there are few people who have around 1 years of experience, uh, uh, up to the 11 years of experience as well, right? But most of us feel that we are not expert at data structures and algorithm, and you know that you don't know data structures algorithm, and you want to learn it, but you don't find the right platform or the right place from where you can learn the same. So I'll be helping you out with the same. Talking about my previous experiences, so I've interviewed almost with all the big tech giants like Microsoft, Amazon. I'm working at Google, as I mentioned, but I've interviewed with Microsoft, Amazon, Uber, Flipkart, Ola, almost all the big good tech companies. Apart from that, I have also interviewed with some of the startups and some of the HFT firms, uh, and fintech firms like JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley. I've worked at Stanley as well for some time. So finally, I decided to join Google, and I'm working as a SD3 at Google at this point of time. And talking about my experiences to learn data structures and algorithm, it's not very difficult to actually learn DSA. If you take a right direction, if you take a right path, it should not take you for more than 2 months to learn everything within DSA. Even you don't need to contribute on a daily basis. And what I'll try to do is, we'll start with one of the topic where most of the people actually face difficulty, which is recursion. So as long as the questions are when the questions are very straightforward, like you need to find the next Fibonacci number, right? Then you will be able to solve those questions. But as soon as you get a question which is a bit complex, where you need to imagine how recursion will work, that's where a lot of people actually face a problem. So we'll try to understand recursion. We'll try to solve a couple of questions on the recursion, and I'll be happy to take more questions from your side. Like if you have any confusion about how to prepare for the interviews, or if you have any specific question about the companies, about the interviews, I'll be happy to take those at the end of the class. So let's start with the discussion. We'll start with the recursion. So let me share my screen with all of you. Okay, I hope you people can see my screen. Okay, we'll start with a Fibonacci number, where you might have, most of you have solved this problem, and we'll try to see how to imagine the recursion first with a simpler problem, and then we'll try to apply the similar concept in the concept going forward in the further questions. Okay. One request to all of you is that please stay on mute until unless you don't have any questions or confusion. If you have any questions or doubts, then you can write it on the chat, or if there is no background noise on your side, then you can unmute yourself and ask the questions as well. I'll give you enough opportunity to ask questions. So if you have any doubts, if you have any questions, feel free to ask those as well. Okay, let's start with what exactly is recursion, how exactly recursion works. So we'll try to get into the details of the recursion, try to understand how exactly it works, and please stop me anywhere if you have any confusion. So it's just some setup. Just give me a minute to do some setup, and then we'll start. Okay. So we are talking about recursion. It's nothing but it's a way to solve a given problem with the help of system stack. Okay, I'm starting from basics, so some of you might already know these concepts, but I mean, there will be definitely a lot of learning for you today. So even if you know these things, stay connected, and like if you have any questions, you can ask those questions as well. So what happens is that, okay, if you might have seen that we write a main method, and what we do is we actually call a method from here. Let's say if I've called a method called foo. What will happen is, and after that I have written print 1 here. Okay, here I've written print 0. And in method foo, I have written this returning void. And I have written in foo method, I have written print foo. Okay, consider that foo is some kind of function which actually prints the value. Now, what will happen in this case is that we'll start from here, 0 will be printed. Correct. After that, we are calling this method, the call will go here. Now the way system works is that it actually registers the address of the line to which it has to return back. So it is making a call from here to this particular method. Here foo will be printed. And after this method is over, what the system stack will do, it will pop out the value from here to get the address or the line number at which I have to return. So it will return, it will just clear this again, the address, we are storing some line address here. We'll come back to this particular line and then we'll print 1. Now, most of the people feel difficulty to understand how exactly recursion works. So I'll try to clarify this with the help of same example. So let's try to take a bit more difficult example here. Let's say you have a main method and what you have written here is, let's say foo. And what you're doing is this foo method, in this foo method, you're calling another method, let's say bar. Okay. And you're printing some value here, print before bar and after bar. Print after bar. Correct. And in bar, what you are writing is print bar. Correct. That is what you have written inside this method. And you're calling print before foo. I'll just write b.f and print after foo. So what is happening? The main method will start the execution. It will print before foo. Then there will be a stack because you are making a call to the foo method. Correct. So here the foo method will go, and what will happen? You will print bar before bar. Then you will call bar method. So what will happen? This will go as a part of the recursion here. Correct. And it's not a recursion, sorry, it will just call a method here, it will be stored in the stack. You will print bar. Now this method is over, so it will see from where it has the call was made. So it will pop out this value. It will return back to this line. It will print after bar. Correct. It will pop out this as well because this method is over. It will pop out foo as well, and it will print after foo. So that's how your simple, simple method, when you make a calls, that's how your simple method works. Correct. Now what we are trying to do is we'll try to understand the recursion with the help of same method. So what happens is, like, a lot of people face difficulty to understand how exactly recursion is working. So let's take a similar example. Okay. So what you are doing is you have written main here. Okay. And what you are passing is, let's say you are passing something called foo with value is n here. Okay. So what we are doing is when we are calling with foo, let's say we are calling it with 10. Correct. We are calling this, and here we'll write foo method. Assume that there is a void here. and you're getting int n, and what you're writing is until and unless if n double equals to 1, then you write return. Okay, and before this what you'll write, you will write print, or you will write print n, let's say, and then you are writing calling foo again with n minus 1. Correct. Let's say here we are passing 5 instead of 10, just to make it simple example. So what is happening here? Correct. So try to think in this direction. So what is happening? You're calling foo with 5. So it is calling what? Foo here, foo method. You are checking, this is the method call, right? So this is void foo with this. And then again you are calling foo with n minus 1. So it will again call another. Imagine that there is another method which is also of name foo, and it takes a parameter sum 4. And again you have written the same lines of code there, and it is calling what? Void foo with 3. Similarly foo with a 2 and foo with 1. Correct. In foo 1 what we have written is if n double equals to 1, we are simply returning. Correct. So what is happening here is that this 5, foo 5 is going inside this, foo 4 is going inside this, foo 3 is going here, foo 2 is going here, and foo 1 is also going here. Correct. Now when you actually return back, what will happen? It will pop out, it will call foo with 1. Correct. So this would have called foo with 1 here, it would have gone here. Here you are checking that if n double equals to 1, then return. So n was 1, so we are returning the value. So I'll return back the value. So this will be popped out to check from where exactly it was called. Correct. So it was called from here, from 2. Foo 1 was called from when n was equal to 2. Correct. See here, what we were doing was we were printing 2 and then we were calling foo 1, right? Foo 2 minus 1, which is foo 1. So it will pop out this value. It will pop out this value, it will pop out this value, it will pop out to this value, and it will return back to this main function. So consider that these are different methods of foo only which have the values, and then you then whatever is written inside this, you just execute those statements. So if n double equals to 1, what we are doing, we are returning, but that is not the case. So first we are printing and then we are calling foo 4, right? So first we are printing. So what would have happened here? We would have printed 5 and then we would have called foo 4. What we have written here, print 4 and then call foo 3. So 4 will print 4 and will call foo 3. We are printing 3 and then calling foo 2. So we are calling foo 2 and then we are printing 2 and calling foo 1. Printing 2 and calling foo 1. When we are calling foo 1, we are checking if n double equals to 1. Yes, it is. Then we are returning. So we'll return here, from here, we'll return to what? Foo, this n equal to 2, because from here we have called foo 1. Correct. Nothing is remaining. So this method is over. So it will return back to this from wherever it was called. So it will return back and you'll keep on returning back and you will return back to the main function. So whenever you have confusion that how recursion is working, assume that these are separate methods written on top of each other and you keep on calling the same method. It says that consider that this is foo 5, method name is foo 5. The method name is foo 4, foo 3, foo 2 and foo 1. This will help you to understand the recursion and don't make any mistake in the recursion. And everything, all the addresses are stored as a part of the stack. So whenever you are returning back, it will pop out the value to get the name of the stack. It will pop out the value to get the name of the stack and return back to the same function. There are few questions from Mohammed. Mohammed, please wait for some time. I'll take those questions after some time. So base case and function call is yes. Please wait for some time. I'll answer all those questions. So I hope there are no specific questions on what I have explained so far. If there are any questions, then please ask. Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll try to create a. Let's try to see how can we actually. Let's try to solve the Fibonacci numbers with the help of the similar approach. So let's say if I need to so everyone know what is Fibonacci number, right? I'll just quickly tell you what is Fibonacci number. So Fibonacci number, it's a sequence or a series which says that the sum of the next number is equal to sum of the previous two number. and the first two digits of the Fibonacci sequence is 0 and 1. So the third digit will be what? 0 plus 1 will be 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, 5 plus 3 is 8, 8 plus 5 is 13, and so on. Correct? So if I ask you, you need to find the Fibonacci number fib of what? 5, or let's say fib of 7. And how you will do it? So a very, very simple way to write this with the help of recursion is you write int, you have to return int, you have fib, you are getting int n here, and you know the first two digits, right? So you'll write if n double equals to 1, that means return what? 0, because that is fixed value. And if n double equals to 2, then return what? Return 1. Correct? Else, what do you need to do? You need to call a recursion with what? Fib of what? Fib of n minus 1 plus fib of n minus 2. Fib of n minus 2. Now, what we are trying to do is, because if I've calculated the value of the previous, if I've already calculated the previous two value, my sum will be equal to the sum of the nth value will be equal to the sum of the previous two value. So I need to calculate this. I need to get the previous value and previous to previous value. So that is what I have written here. So now let's try to draw a tree out of it. So if I ask, let's say fib is f, function f. So I have to do f of 7. So what we are doing is we'll write f of 7. So f of 7 is equal to what? F of 6 plus f of 5. Now f of 6 is what? F of 5 plus f of 4. Similarly, f of 5 is what? F of 4 plus f of 3. Now f of 5 is what? F of 4 plus f of 3. 4 is what? F of 3 plus f of 2. What is 4? 4 is f of 3 plus f of 2. Correct? This is what? F of 2 plus f of 1. And this is what? F of 3 and f of 2. This is f of 2 and f of 1. This is also f of 2 and f of 1. This was f of 2. So we know the value of f of 2, which is equal to 1. So can I return 1 from here? This is what? F of 3, sorry, f of 2 plus f of 1. This is, we already know the value of this. This is equal to what? 1. F of 2 is 1. F of 1 is what? 0. This is 0, right? So what is f of 3? 1 plus 0. So 1 plus 0 is what? 1. So we got f of 3. So similarly, we'll return what? From here, we'll return 1. We'll return 0. So this will become 1. So this will be 1 again. This will be 1. Correct? And f of 3 is what? F of 2 and f of 1. We know that this is equal to what? 1. So what is the value of this? 1 plus 1. So f of 4, sorry, 1 plus, what is f of 2? F of 2 is 1. Correct? F of 2 is also 1. Correct? So 1 plus 1 is 2. So f of 4 is what? 2. And what is f of 5? 2 plus 1 is 3. So f of 5 is what? 3. Now, see f of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So f of 5 is 3. And similarly, f of 2 is, we have already calculated. This is what? 1. This is what? 0. This is 1. This is 0. So this is 1, 1. This is 1. And similarly, we'll calculate. So f of 4 is what? 2. F of 4 is what? 2. And what is f of 6? 3 plus 2, which is equal to 5. And this is what? 2 plus 1, which is equal to 3. And finally, 5 plus 3 equal to 8. So that's how your recursion is looking like right now. Okay? So you understood how exactly the recursion is working. So we are going deep down, and we know that this function f of 3 would have called f of 2 and f of 1. So we are storing this as a part of the stack. So first what we are doing, we are calling this f of 6, f of 6. So the way it is working is that, let's try to understand how exactly this is working as well. Okay. So what is happening here is, so first we are calling f of 7, correct? What we are saying is f of 7 equal to f of 6 plus f of 5. So first we'll call the recursion with f of 6. So it will call simply f of 6 first. Now what f of 6 will do? It will call f of 6 will call f of 5. What f of 5 will do? It will call f of 4 and f of 3 and f of 2 and then f of 1. F of 2 is, we know what is the value, so we'll return back that value. Now 3 should also call f of 1 as well, right? See, that's what we have written here. So it will call f of 1 as well. The value will be calculated because we know both the values. This will be calculated, stored here as 1. Now f of 4 should call f of 2 as well. So it will call f of 2. We know the value of f of 2, will return that value. We'll store what? 1 plus 1 is 2 here. Now f of 5 will call what? F of 3 as well. Again, f of 3 will go and distribute itself in f of 2 and f of 1. We know the value. It will return back to this. This and this value will be added and return back to 5. So 2 plus 1 is what? 3. So f of 3 is what? F of 5 is what? 3. Now f of 6 will call what? F of 5 and f of 4. Now what we'll do, we'll again call f of 4 with f of 3. F of 3 will call f of 2. F of 2 we already know, so it will return back as 1. F of 3 will become what? It will call f of 1 as well. So this will be 0. So 1 plus this will be 1. And this will call f of 2 again. We know the value of f of 2, which is equal to 1. So 1 plus 1 will be returned, and f of 4 will be equal to 2 and will return 2 here. So this will become what? 3 plus 2, 5. So f of 6 will become 5. Now similarly, f of 7 will also call f of 5. So this structure will again remain same completely. Here is it. So I hope you got the high level idea of how exactly a recursion works, right? First, it will go into this depth. Try to finish this depth first, and then start returning back. Complete this, return back, complete this, return back, complete this. Okay, now you have to go inside, right? So it will complete this, return back, it will go inside. It will go here now, it will go inside, return back, finish this, return back, go inside, return back, return back, return back, and then go to f of 5 again. And then same structure will start. So I hope most of you got a fair idea of how exactly a recursion works. Now let's try to solve some of the questions with the help of this recursion approach. Correct. So we'll try to start with a bit more complex question now, instead, because most of you will be able to write the code for a simple question, but let's try to understand a bit more complex question here. Okay. So you might have heard of this question like a lot of time, that there is an array given to you of some numbers 2, 3, 1, 5, 2, 3, 1, 4. And what do you need to do is you need to generate all the subsets from this set. Correct? You need to generate all the subsets from this set. So we'll start with what? Now see, what are the subsets? So the first subset will be empty. The other one could be just containing 2. Another one could be just containing 3, 1, 4. Then you can have 2, 3. You can have 2, 1, 2, 4, 3, 1, 3, 4, 1, 4. Then you can have 2, 3, 1. You can have 2, 3, 4. See, order doesn't matter here, right? So 2, 3, 4, and then you can have 3, 1, 4, and then you can have 2, 3, 1. So these are all the possible subsets to actually, generate. These are all the possible subsets for a given set. Now, what do we need to do is we need to print all the possible subsets for the given set. So how many subsets are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So there are 16 subsets. Now, how will you approach this problem? So I'll give you 2 minutes. Try to think how you will generate these subsets, right? So what you need to do is you need to generate all the subsets and then print all those subsets with the help of the recursion. Okay, you can start with not necessarily you have to solve this question by recursion. If you have any other proposal, you can propose that as well. Let's see if that will work or not. Otherwise, I mean, we'll see the we'll see the other approach as well. But even if you have any other approach in your mind, you can, which is not with the help of recursion, you can mention that as well. Nisha has asked, can I explain you with the help of stack diagram? Which one you're talking about? The previous question? Okay, I will definitely do that. So do one thing. Meanwhile, other people can start thinking about the solution who got the previous question. But I'll try to explain the previous question with the help of stack diagram. Okay. So see what was happening here. Let's take a smaller number instead of f of 7 because it is very big. So let's take a smaller number, something like f of 4 or f of 5. So see what we have written is, if you remember the code, we have written fib of n minus 1 plus fib of n minus 2. Correct. So first this call would have been made, and then only this call. Once this will be completed, then only we'll call this. So first what will happen? You are standing on n equal to 5. Correct. So let's draw a stack here. You're standing on n equal to 5, and what you have written is you will call fib of 4. So you will call fib of 4 from here. Correct. Now you are calling from here, what you are calling is fib of 4, f of 4. Now from here, what you will call again f of 3. Correct. So what you'll write here, fib of 3. Now what you'll call from here, f of 2. So you will call fib of 2. Correct. Now fib of 2 value we have already calculated, right? So when you call fib of 2, we know that the value is, because n is equal to 2, then return 1 we have written, right? So this will return 1 to fib of 2. So fib of 2 will become equal to 1. So this will be returned to this fib of 3. Now you see if f of 3, what we have, fib of 3 is equal to f of 3, we have done here, but what we have to do is, we are standing here right now, correct? So we also need to calculate f of 1 here, right? So this will give you fib of what? So see, we are calling fib of, when n is equal to 5, we are calling fib of 4. When n is equal to 4, we are calling fib of 3. When n is equal to 3, we are calling fib of 2. So we have called fib of 2. Okay, let's not draw this right now. Okay. What we have done is, we have called fib of 2, and it will call fib of 2 here. And we know that what is the answer of fib of 2? Fib of 2 is equal to what? 1. So it will return back 1 to here. But is n equal to 3 over yet? No, it has to call fib of 1 as well, right? So it will take out fib of 2 from here. It will pop out, and it will insert now fib of 1 in this and call fib of 1. Now fib of 1 is equal to what? 0. Correct. So 0 will be returned here. Fib of 1 is completed. Right? Fib of 1 is completed. So n equal to 3 is computed. That is equal to 1 plus 0, which is equal to 1. So this is equal to 1. Correct. So once we calculate this, what will happen? This response will return back to what? Here. Correct. Now when n is equal to 4, fib of 3 I have already calculated, but I also need to calculate fib of 2, right? So fib of 3 will be popped out from this stack. Will insert what? Fib of 2. Now fib of 2 will call. Fib of 2 will, what it will return? It will return 1. It will return 1 to this fib of 2. And what will happen? Once it returns fib of 2, this will also be popped out. It will return here to n equal to 4. The answer will be what? This is equal, fib of 2 is 1. Fib of 3 is also 1. So 3, f of 3 and f of 2 is also 1. Sorry, here it is, right? Yeah, this was f of 1. So this is also 1. So 1 plus 1, 2 will be returned. 2 will be returned to what? N equal to 4, right? So it was called from here, correct? So it will be, 2 will be returned to here, fib of 5. So this was my fib of 5 equal to this, n equal to 5, correct? Now when I'm doing this, we also need to calculate what? So fib of 4 will be taken out because this is already computed, and now we'll call fib of 3. We'll call fib of 3 here. Correct? We'll call fib of 3. Fib of 3 will, what it will do? It will call, insert what? It will insert fib of 2 into the this. Now if it will insert fib of 2, we'll call fib of 2 here. When n is equal to 2, it will return what? It will return 1. And fib of 3 will also called what? This will be popped out. Sorry, fib of 2 will be popped out. it will call fib of 1 now. Fib of 1 is equal to what? Fib of 1 is equal to 0. So 0 will be returned back. 3, 1 plus 0 will be 1. So fib of 1 will become 1. This will be popped out. So fib of 5 will be equal to what? F of 4 plus f of 3. F of 3 we have computed as 1. F of 4 we have computed as what? F of 4 we have computed as 1 plus 1, 2. So 2 plus 1 is equal to 3. That will be returned to n equal to 5. So whatever, so main function would have made another call. So here we would have main call as well, right? Which would have called fib of 5, correct? Because from main, what we'll do, we'll call fib of 5 only, right? So that will also be there in the stack. So this will be returned back. N equal to 5 will be calculated. It will return back. The answer returned would be 3 here, and the answer will become what? Now you'll pop out this value, and you will store it somewhere. Let's say you have answer equal to something like this. Answer equal to fib of 5. Correct? In the main method, you have written answer equal to fib of 5. So it will calculate fib of 5. It will return back the answer here, and you can print the answer now in the main. So I hope you understood the system stack call now. Do you still have any question? Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now let's come back to the previous question. Right? So what we are trying to do is we have to generate all subsets here, right? So let's try to see a tree diagram again for this question. So one simple approach is that what we can do is we'll try to generate all the subsets with length equal to 0. So what you can write a code like this. I have to generate a subset from I is equal to 0 and I is less than what? Maximum length can be 4, I plus plus, and then you should be able to generate this. This is the length. Of length 0, what will be? Only 1 will be there. Of length 1, if you want to generate on this array, then it will be this, 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 and this. Of length 2. So something like that you can do by writing the for loop and generate all the subsets. Now there is another way to solve it with the help of recursion. If you still have any questions on the iterative code, try to think about it. Most of you will be able to come up with a solution. If you can't, then let me know. I'll tell you the iterative solution as well. But let's try to see the recursive code. Iterative is not very straightforward. There will be difficulty, but you got how you will solve it. But it will be difficult for you to manage the variables here. That's why I'm saying that try to write the recursion for this question. We'll try to see how to write the recursion. And recursion is much more easier. Iterative code is not that straightforward. But what you have to do is essentially you need to generate all the substrings of length 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 with the help of iterative code if you want to write the iterative code. Okay. Now see, let's come back onto the doc which we have. Oh, not the doc. Let's stay here only right now. So let's take a small example. Let's start with 2, 3, and 1. So you have to generate all the subsets for this. So see, whenever you are, so you will stand on the 0th index, correct? Now you have two choices, whether you want to include this as a part of your sub-array subset or not. So see, there are subsets in which 2 is appearing, and then there are subsets in which 2 is not appearing. So definitely we have two choices for each of the subset. What were the choices? Whether to take 2 or not take 2. We'll start with the same statement here. So let's say if we don't take 2 in the subset, if we don't take 2, then nothing is present in my subset right now. And the second choice was if I take 2. Let's come on to that choice later on. Now, what if I don't take 2, I go to 3. Again, I say that I have two choices, whether to not take 3 or take 3. I'll write the index here. So n is equal to 0. That means this index is equal to 0 right now. I have two choices for 3 as well, whether to take 3 or not take 3. I decided I won't take 3 for now. So here what? N was equal to 1. I go down further and I say that I had again two choices here when I was standing on 1, whether to take 1 or not take 1. If I don't take 1, then what will happen? I'll reach end of the array and I will get the empty subset, correct? Now I return back from here and I say that, okay, let's take 1. So here, this was 1, right? N equal to 2 is 1, right? So I'll take 1, then what will happen? I'll insert 1 in my array and I will go to n equal to 3. I'll go to the next index. So what will end up generating is a sub-array, a subset with 1. I'll return back here. I'll print these values. I'll return back. Now this is completed because I had only two choices. So I'll return back to this, where I was deciding whether to take what was the choice here? Sorry, yeah, whether to take 3 or not take 3, correct? So that was the choice. So I decided that I won't take 3 here. So if I decide that I will take 3, so let's say if I take 3, then 3 is already present in my subset. Now I have two choices on one again, whether to take one or not take one. So first I'll say that I won't take one. So what will happen? Answer will be 3. But if I take one, then the subset will be what? 3 and 1. Correct? I'll return back from here to the top because this is also completed. Now we'll go back to the previous one. I had two choices here as well, right? Whether to take 2 or not take 2. Correct? That's what I have written here. Whether to take 2 or not take 2. So if I take 2, actually I don't need to draw this line at all. This is not required. So I'm saying that here I have not taken, so here I have taken, not taken 2. So this is like I have not taken 2. Correct? Here I have not taken 3, and here I have not taken 1. Okay, so n was 0. So I'm check. I have not taken 1. So only this will remain, and when I'll go down, this will be printed. Now 2 is here, right? So I have taken 2, let's say. So I have taken 2. So what will happen? If I have taken 2, then 2 will be inserted into my array. Now I have two choices again, whether to take 3 or not take 3. So if I don't take 3, I'll come here with only 2. Again, I have two choices, whether to not take 1 and take 1. So if I don't take 1, what will happen? Only 2 will be there. But from here, I can take 1 as well. So if I take 1, it will become what? 2 and 1. Correct? I'll return back because this is also completed. I'll return back. Now what I have decided that I won't take 3 here. But let's say I decide that I'll take 3 now. So it will become what? 2, 3. Now again, I have two choices for 1. Whether to take 1 or not take 1. So if I don't take 1, then this will remain as 2, 3. If I take 1, then this will become what? 2, 3, 1. And if you'll see, all the possible subsets are generated. So 1, empty 1, then with 1, 1, 1. So there are 3 like that. Then 2, 3 and 2, 1 should be there. So we have 2, 3 and 2, 1. And then there should be 3, 1 as well. So we have 3, 1. And then there should be 2, 3, 1. So that's how we have generated all the subsets. Now, how to write the code for this one? So see, it's very simple. What you need to do is, you are saying that I am always making two choices, whether to take the element or not take the element, and keep on calling the recursion. So let's try to write the code for the same thing. Let's try to write the code. So does anyone has any confusion or questions before I start moving on to the coding part? Sorry, some of you have joined recently. But yeah, do you have any questions? Do you have any question till now? Like whatever I've explained, I'll write the code for it. So once I write the code, maybe it will be much more clear. But let's try to write the code. And if you still have any confusion, then you can ask me. Okay, let me share a doc with you people. Just give me a minute. Or let's try to write it on IDE one maybe. So I hope you people can see my screen. Well, we can write it in C++ as well. Let's try to run it so that we do store it. Click on edit. We'll try to write the code now. So what we need to do is, I hope it is, let's do full screen. I hope the screen is visible. Let me know if you want me to increase the font. I've increased the font size. Let me know if you still if you're still facing difficulty to understand, uh, like understand the code, or if you can't see it clearly. So we can write it in C++. C++, it doesn't matter. You can write it in Java as well. Java will be similar to C++ as well. I mean, I can write another code in Java maybe if required, but it should be fairly simple. So what we need to do is we need to generate all the subsets. So let's say we have got integer array, which contains these 4 values. Let's say 1, b1, or let's take 2, 1, 3, 4. Now what we are doing is, here we'll write, we have to return void, and we'll write generate all subsets. Now what we have got here is int arr. This represents my array. What is the size of the array? In Java, you can do arr.size plus you'll have to pass the size. So you are passing the size here. And then you have the array, you have the integer, and you have the current index, int current. So where are you standing currently? And that's it. And what we'll pass from here is, we'll call generate all subsets. Okay, call generate all subsets. Let's say this is my main method. I don't need to write this here. What we are doing is we are simply passing arr, comma. Now what we'll write here is, because we have to write the recursion, we have to pass the current index. So I'll write generate all subs recur. So this is my function name. I'm taking arr, I'm taking n as a parameter, and I'm passing 0 as the current index. Now when I'm writing generate all sub recur, I'll have to implement this method as well. So I'll write void generate all sub recur. So there is no way I can. Okay. Yep. So what we'll write here is int arr, int n, and int current index. Okay. Now what we are doing is, we'll say that, do we need anything else as well? We'll figure out it at a later point of time. Let's say we'll figure out what exactly do we need anything else apart from this. We'll figure out. So now we will do what? Int if arr, we have to print something, right? So we'll have to pass the array as well, which we have to print. So we'll also take int current, current subset. This will represent my current subset. Now what I am doing is, here I am saying if current index double equals to n, that means that you have reached end of the array. So we will print the current subset which we have. So what we'll do, we'll write a print method which will take current subsets as a parameter, and it's an array. Int current subset is an array, so it will take array as the parameter and it will print the values present in the array. Okay, and what we'll do, because we can't go further, we'll simply return back. So these conditions, right? This particular condition in this case, this is known as terminating condition. Why terminating condition? Because after this condition is executed, you will start returning back to your function stack call. So basically, you will start popping out the value from your function stack. So you'll go. So these are known as the terminating conditions. And whenever you write a recursion, you always have the terminating condition. So this is my terminating condition. Now what I have to do? I have to make a choice whether to consider an element or don't consider an element. Correct? So first I'll go ahead with don't consider the current element. If I don't consider the current element, then what I'll write generate all subset recur. I'll call this recursion again. Correct. And what I'll do, because I'm not considering anything, I don't need to add anything. So I'll do arrn. I'll do current index plus 1 because I have to go on to the next index, and I'll pass current subset as it is. I don't need to insert anything in this current subset, or I don't need to pop out anything from this current subset. Now here it will, if you use vector, it will become easier. You can use array list as well because you have pushback and popback functions already available in the vector. So let's use vector here. You can use array list in Java, and in Python as well you have array. You can use array and you can get the size of the array, so you can use that as well. But here we'll use the vector. Correct. So this is okay. This is my current subset. You can use array list instead in Java. Okay. Now what I'm saying is, if I am not adding anything, I'll just pass my current subset as it is, and I won't consider anything. So it will, what it will do, it will keep on calling the recursion with current index plus one plus one plus one plus one until it will reach current index equal to n. It will print the current subset, which will be empty for now. Then what we'll do is, second thing which we need to do is consider the current element. Now, if we are considering the current element, what we are doing is we'll have to insert this in the current subset. So we'll write current subset dot push. You have pushback, right? So pushback in C++ you have pushback. In Java you will have current subs. If you are creating an array list, it will be list dot add something. And similarly in Python as well, you can do add append. I think there is an append function in Python which will append the value in the array. So you will do current subset dot pushback. What you have to push? You have to push the value at the current index, right? So we'll push ARR of current index. And what you'll do, you will call generate all subsets again. You'll call generate all subset again because you have updated the value. So automatically current subset will change now, correct? And you will call your recursion. And when you return back, you should remove this value again from your current current subset, right? So what we'll do, we'll write current subset dot pop back. So we'll remove whatever we have pushed in the, and it will, the recursion will keep going on and it will print everything. Now here some of you might have confusion in line number 16 and line number 18. To simplify it, what you can do is to create a new vector of int, let's say new subset, and what you do is you actually make a copy of this, of the current subset. So you create a new subset equal to, I think there is a copy function which will copy the, I don't remember the exact syntax, but it'll copy all the values which are present in the current subset. Once you do that, so create this copy all values from current subset, and then what you do, once you copy all the values from the current subset, you also, you copy all the values from the current subset, you also insert the current value, and then you call the recursion, so that you don't need to remove this line. So you can do that as well instead. But how many of you understood why do we need to remove this value? See, because we are maintaining this vector, right? It's the same vector. So if we have pushed some value, right? So let's say, let's go back to our example. Let's go back to our example. So what we are doing, see here, if you'll see, what you are doing was whether to consider, so we have inserted one and then we were returning back, right? When we were returning back, we should not have this one present in our array, right? So we inserted one here at this point. So we should remove this one as well, right? While we are returning back, because recursion will return back. So your array should be whatever it was earlier. So what was your array earlier when you actually called this? When you actually called this get all sub recur, when you actually called this method from the previous one, your whatever current subset was there, then you appended a value, right? You push back that value, then you call generate all subsets. You should also remove that value because you pushed that value by yourself, right? In the recursion. So you remove that value and you generate all the subsets. And I will do ID1. So let's see if there are any compilation errors. Hopefully not. Okay, there is one vector. Okay, I have to declare the ID1. Okay, there is a print method which I have not written. So let's write the print method as well. So what we are doing is void print will have what it will take. It will take vector of int current subset is a subset. And how to print it? So what we'll do is we'll do cout this. Then we'll do what? For int I is equal to 0, I is less than subset dot size I plus plus, what I'll write? Cout whatever is the value. So that will be your subset of I. And then after that, I'm again writing a closing bracket just to this. Then I'll write that. Try to run this. Current index pop back. Okay, we don't need to, it will just pop back the last value, right? So I don't need to write what has to be popped back. It will only pop back the last value. There's some compilation error. And there is another one, generate all subs recur not declared here. Okay, so here we are passing what? Vector of int, right? So I should pass that vector of int here as well, right? So what I'll do is I'll create a vector of int vec, and I'll pass this empty vector here. So these are very minor mistakes. This can be avoided. And was not declared. So ARR. Okay. So this is So this is ARR and the size is 4 here. Sorry guys. So see what it did is it actually printed all the subsets. So let's try to see the smaller example. It will be much more clear. Let me actually do this. Okay, let's start with a smaller example. Let's say 213 we have. Let's clear the output. Let's ID1 it again. So it's running. Oh, it's still running. This should be 3 now. Clear the output. ID1 because the size of the arrays has been changed to 3. It's running now. So here if you'll see all the subsets are generated. So first one is empty, then you have 3, then you have 1, then you have 1 3, then you have 2, then you have 2 3, then you have 2 1, and then you have 2 1. So we successfully generated all the possible subsets for the given array. Is there any? Yes, Mohammed, it is a recursion, if that is your question. Okay, are there any questions or confusion on whatever I've explained so far? Please ask if you have any question. If you didn't understand any part of it, I am happy to answer those questions. Okay, so shall I assume that everyone understood everything, whatever I explained so far? Okay, that's great. I mean, if you understood it, this is great. So see what I'll explain it to you again, and I hope you understood why we have written this line, because this is very important, right? We are pushing something and then we are popping back something. Correct? So that's why this is important. Correct? So if I don't write this, actually in C++, this might cause a problem. Actually, this will work fine. If I do an address, then it will be a problem. And generally you take an address here. But don't worry, you should write this line because you should remove the value, whatever you have inserted. See, this will cause a problem because what is happening is you are not removing the values which you have inserted. So simply do this. So whatever you have inserted in Java, it is a deep copy, right? So basically, if you have, it's the same array which will be sent every time. So in Java, if you don't write this statement, you will get output like this, which is not a correct output because you are inserting something here, and when you are returning back, so you will return back to the previous call. So if you'll see my structure here, let's see the structure here on the. So here, if you will see the structure, when we are returning back, we will assume that at this point we'll have the array which we have got as a part of the from here, right? So if we have inserted one here, we should remove that one. So while going back, we'll actually remove that one because we have inserted one from here, and then we'll have the same array which whatever it will look like, and then we'll check if we have to take 3 or not take 3. Again, we'll do the same thing, and that's how this recursion will. Are there any? Is there any? Do you still have any questions here? Please ask if you have a question. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next question. Okay. So if you want, I can share the code with you people. You can take a look at this later on as well. I'll put it in the chat, shared it with everyone. Now, see, if I ask you that given a number, let's say there is an array of size 10 given to you, you need to tell me the count of all the subsets. Then how will you solve that problem? We can very easily solve the same problem, right? What we can do is, instead of actually creating an array, let me share my screen. So because we don't need to create this array, so if we are considering that value, then we'll do what? Okay, you think about the solution. It's not very complex. I would leave it to you people to figure out. So what we are doing is whether we have to take an element or not take element, correct? That is all what we need to do, correct? And what we are doing is we will keep on calling this. So we don't need this current vector anymore, correct? So always we had two choices, whether to take the element or not take the element, correct? If we don't take the element, then the recursion will look like this. And if we take the element, then the recursion will look like, we're taking the current element, it will still look like this, but we are taking the current element here. And then what will pass here, instead of printing, we can just write count here. So we'll return one here, and this will return this. What we'll write, we will write here int. And then what we can do is int answer, we can write int answer equal to 0, and we can do answer plus equal to this, and answer plus equal to this, and then return answer. So this will give you the number of subsets which can be generated. Compile it here, you'll get the number of subsets. We are not printing any value. Okay, we should return it here. So we'll return it here, and we'll return cout here, we'll print cout. This should be returned from here. To give you the number of subsets. So here we got 8 as the answer. If I increase this, then we'll get what? We should get 16 as the answer. So we got 16 as the answer. So I hope that it is clear to everyone. Now you can solve a follow-up question on the same. The follow-up question is that you only need to consider, you need to generate all subsets in such a way that only the generate all subsets only with the even number. So if there is an odd number, then you should definitely ignore it. You should not even consider it. So you need to print the number of subsets which are generated only with the even number. Try to solve that problem at a later point of time. It's like a follow-up question for you on the. So you'll understand it that how this recursion is working. Is there any question before I move on to the next question? Any doubts here? Okay, let's move on to the next question. Let's try to see another interesting question with the help of recursion. Okay, let's move on to the doc. Okay, let's try to see another question. Give me a second. Yep, it is working now. So let's say we have a 2D array. Okay, we have a 2D array, or we can say that there is a 2D grid given to us. Something like this. And then there are coins present in this 2D grid. And these are gold coins. Okay, so let's say the gold coin, this is 1, 1, 1, 1. 1 and 0 are there. Either there is 1 gold coin or there is 0 gold coin. Okay, then you have 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. You have 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. Now, there is a thief who's standing on this particular point. Okay, 0, comma 0. And they can actually move only in two directions. Either they can go in the rightward direction or they can move in the downward direction. What they have to do is, when they actually reach this particular point, which is your 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when they reach 4, 4 point, they should be able to collect maximum gold coins. Okay, so only two directions are possible. So they have to collect the maximum gold coins, correct? Now, if they start from this point, they can either go here or either go here. Now from here also they can go here or here. From here also you can go here or here. So you don't need to tell me the path, but you need to return the maximum gold coins a thief can pick from the grid. Okay, so they have to follow this direction, right? So if they go right, they can't come back. They can only go down or they can go right further. And if they reach this, they can't go right further right. And if they reach on this row, then they can't go further down. And if they reach on this column, they can't go further right. So you have to maintain all these conditions. And you can see that there is always two choice for a thief. How you will solve this particular problem? So there can be multiple paths, right? They can go from here like this. 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 Similarly, they can go from here like this. They can go from here like. There can be multiple paths. You can clearly see that, right? What you have to return is the maximum gold coins a thief can pick from the grid. How will you solve this particular question? Anyone who has any idea? Any one of you? I'll give you like 2-3 minutes to think about the solution. If you can think of any solution, then propose your solution. Otherwise, we'll discuss with the solution for the same. Why do you think it's a 0-1 knapsack? 0-1 knapsack is a very complex thing. You don't need to pick the weights here. You have two choices. Don't complicate it. Yes, recursion can be used. Now, how can you use the recursion? That is what you need to think. Correct? You can do it with other methods as well, but there is no need for 0-1 knapsack here. Okay, it's an over, and this question is not even on 0-1 knapsack at all. So you're completely thinking in it. You're not thinking in the right direction. So okay, one tip to everyone. So whenever you actually suggest a algorithm, right, or whenever you suggest a solution for a particular problem, I will give you a couple of tips. tips to always keep in mind during your interviews. So first thing is that try to get all the clarifications on the question. So if you have any questions, if you have any doubt in the question, then please get it clarified from your interviewer. Why? Because if you end up solving the question in the wrong direction, you'll end up end up wasting a lot of time, and you might not get the you might not get the output of it at the end of the interview, because what will happen is that you won't be able to solve the given question within the time if you don't understand the question correctly. The second thing I would suggest is that once you think that you understand the question correctly, try to write couple of test cases around it, just to check whether those test cases are working as expected or not. So that will help you to make sure that you understood the question correctly. Once you're done with it, then you start thinking about the solution. You should think out loud. You should, whatever you are thinking, whatever direction you are taking, maybe take 5-10 minutes to think about the solution, and whatever you have thought about, try to speak up or try to tell that to your interviewer, because even if you're going in the right direction or the wrong direction, your interviewer can help you accordingly. So if you are going in the right direction, they can tell you that yes, you are approaching it correctly, and then you can progress in the similar direction. And if you're taking a wrong step or a wrong direction, they will point you to an example where in the case where it won't work. So always try to think out loud. Once you actually come up with the algorithm, instead of directly proposing your solution, try to run it by yourself on couple of examples, maybe the test cases which you have taken on the initial when you are getting the clarifications from your interviewer. Run those test cases on your algorithm, whether it will work fine or not. It is fine if you run it in your mind as well. Once you're done with that, then you propose your solution. And before you start writing your code, you should propose your solution, discuss it with the interviewer, because what can potentially happen is that if they don't understand your solution correctly, and you directly start writing the code, and in the middle of the code they figure out, or the interviewer or you figure out that the solution is not correct, then you will have to rethink your solution. So you will end up wasting those 10-15 minutes while writing the wrong code. Also, there is another thing. So if you actually propose your solution before you start writing the code, even if you are unable to complete your code in the interview, your interviewer would know that you are actually progressing in the right direction. They will know that you are writing the correct code. It's just that time was there was not a plenty of time to complete the solution for the same. So they'll gauge you accordingly. So keep all these points in your mind, uh, and try to focus on these points, and try to, if you're whenever you're preparing for the interview, right, whenever you are practicing questions, try to follow these steps, some of these steps in your practice as well, so that it will become easier for you to follow these steps during your interview as well. So someone proposed 0-1 knapsack. I'm not saying it is right or wrong. It's good that you propose something, but try to think why 0-1 knapsack is required, and if required, then how you'll implement it. Correct. If you have a solution, I would be more than happy to hear your solution. But instead of randomly proposing a solution, what you should do is you should always try to think about it whether it will work or not. Okay. Please don't mind it, Vigneshwari. I just wanted to Vigneshwari Arun. I just wanted to give these tips to everyone, so that we don't make these mistakes in the interview. And this is the platform where you can learn this thing. So it's good that you propose something, but now you know that whenever you're proposing a solution, you should think about it more instead of directly proposing a solution. Cool. Exactly. So Ramanan, you have proposed the correct solution. It will be good if you can write the code for the same. So meanwhile, I'll explain the same solution to other people as well. So let's try to understand the solution. Let's go on to the top. So see, you always have two directions, and until and unless, so there are few points to notice, right? See, until and unless you don't check all the paths. So what we have observed is, until, let's keep it here. So what can I write? Until we check all the paths, we won't know which one will have maximum coins. Correct? and from every particular point you only have two choices. So if you can calculate that from this point, you know the path at which you'll get the maximum coins, and from this point as well you know the path by which you'll get the maximum coin. You will choose the path from here, you will choose the path which will have the maximum coins, correct? To find out that, what you do is you call the recursion in two directions. You can either go right or either go down. Correct. Let's start going right. So if I go right, I can again go right. Correct. I'll keep going right till the time I don't hit the end point. I can't go right anymore. So I'll start going down now. I'll down, I'll go down, I'll go down, I'll go down. What I'll see, I see that there is a value 1 here. I'll start returning this value 1, 1, 1, 1. So I know that from this particular point, I can get only 1, right? I'm getting 1. Now from here also I can go down, correct? So I'll start going down from here again. So if I start going down from here, again I have two choices, whether to go right or down. So I'll go right first. From here I'll go down, down, down. Again I got the value. Now here also I can go right. Sorry, right I have gone, down, then right again. So this, like this, you will explore all the path possible, right? And you know that whatever is the maximum, so let's say you can reach this point from two paths, whether from here or from here, right? Now when you're returning back, so from here if you'll approach, you'll get 1 coin. From here also you'll get 1 coin. When you're here, you know that there are only two paths on which I can go, either here or here. Now I know that how many coins I can get from here, 1. How many coins I can get from here, 1. So maximum coins, if I follow any of the path, I'll get only 1 coin. Right? Similarly here I can get what? How many coins? 1. Here also I can get only 1 coin. So how many coins I can get here? Only 1. Similarly here also I can get 1 only, and 1. So here also I can get 1. Now here also I can get 1 only, 1 only. Here I can get what? Here 1 plus 1, 1 maximum of this plus 1. This also I'll pick, right? So 2 coins. If I follow this path, then how many coins I can get? 1. I'll go down. Now I can go right or down. If I go right, I know I'll follow the path. I'll calculate and I'll see that only 1 coin I can get. So 1 coin from here, and 1 plus 1 is from here I can get 1 coin. And from here, what if I'll go down? This will also return 1, but if I'll go down, this will return what? 1 plus 1, 2. But if I'll go further down, this will be 1 plus 1, 2 plus 1, 3. So on this grid, I can get 3 coins. And here I can get 2 coins, correct? So 3 coins, I'll return back, return back, return back. Let me write the recursion and we'll come back to the diagram again. Or let's try to actually draw it again. So let's use this. Just a second. Follow the path now. Forget about the values right now. So see, I'll explain you the path which we are following. See, let's say I start going down first. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll go down. I can go down. I can go down. So this is my recursion, right? I can't go further down. I'll go right. I'll go right. I'll go right. I'll go right. Now I'll return back, return back, return back, return back. From here, what I'll do, I'll go right. I'll go right. Correct. Now I'll go down. I will go right. I'll go right. I'll go right. Calculate, return back. I'll go right again here. From here also I can go down. I'll go right. I'll go right. I'll return back to here. From here also I can go down. Sorry, right. Go down. Right and right. Again return back. From here also I can go right and down. So these are the paths possible. I know that maximum coin I can get till here. Maximum coins I can get till here. I'll know that the max of these two I'll take. The maximum coins I can get till here from the path. So here 1, 2, 3, 4 we can get till here. Correct? Or 1, 2, 3, 4. We can take any of the path. But if I'll go from here, then I can get only 3 coins. So I'll take 4 plus 1, 5. So from here I know that I can get 5 coins. Now when I'm going from here, I will again try to see how many coins I can get from this path. So I can go down and again follow the same path. And I can go right, again follow the same path, go right, follow the same path, go right, follow the same path. So I'll know that maximum coins I can create here. Now whatever is the max of these two, I'll take it here and put it here. Let me write the code, and then if you have any confusion, then let me know. I'll explain it to you again. Okay, so let's try to write the code for the second question. Let me share this link with you if you need it by any chance to take a look. Okay, so let's try to understand this with recursion again. So you know that you have only two choices. So what were the two choices? One was that you can go right or you can go down. Now what we have done is, again we have integer, we have to return int, which is max coins. I'll write max coins is the this, and then what we are getting, int ARR. Correct. You can write the same code in Java as well. If you want, I can write this code in Java. Actually, let me write it in Java, because most of the people prefer Java here. We reload. Okay, let me share my screen. I'm not sharing my screen. Let's try to write it in Java. So we have public static void main, and here what we are doing is, let's say we are getting some array. So let's try to write the 2D array code directly. So we have int max coins, int ARR, and what we are getting is ARR comma ARR. And let's say we know the number of rows as well, and we know the number of columns as well. Okay, we have to collect the maximum points. Now we always have two choices until what, if we actually hit the end of the row. So, and we also need to maintain the current indexes, current point on which I'm standing. So I'll do int x and int y. Correct. Now what I'm saying is, if x double equal to m or y double equals to n, that means that I have hit the, I'm actually out of the index, so I should not iterate. So I'll simply return 0 because I can't pick anything. Now what I'm saying is, if that is not the case, then what do? You will write max coins again, and you have two choices. So you will go right. So you'll say right int right equal to max coins. I'll pass ARR comma n comma m will remain same, and x will become what, because I have to go right. So I am shifting the column. So x will remain x, the row is same, or let's call it as row and column instead x and y. Okay. So row will remain same, but the column will change. So I'm calling the recursion here. Correct. And what I'll say, I'll say int down equal to max coins of what, ARR comma n comma m comma row plus 1 comma col. Here it will become col plus 1, correct? Column plus 1. Now I know that how many coins I can collect in the rightward direction and downward direction. And I also need to mention one more condition here, right? It is not necessary, but it's good to mention. So if x double equal to m minus 1 and then y double equals to, sorry, x double equal to n minus 1 and y double equal to m minus 1. Okay, we have taken m and n. Let's make it n and m. Y double equal to m minus 1. Then what we are saying? Simply return the coins which you have on that particular, because that is what your nth comma mth, the last cell in the grid, right, where the thief has to reach. So what will return? Will return ARR of what? ARR of x and, sorry, this is row and this is col, and this is also row, this is also col, and this is what? ARR of row comma ARR of col. And here what we are checking, whatever is the maximum we can get, potential maximum, we'll write int return answer or return max of what? Right comma down plus the coin which you can collect from the current one as well, right? So we'll write ARR of what? Current row, and so this will be my simple recursion to actually collect the maximum number of coins present in the grid. So what I'm doing is, let's copy this code and let's try to understand. Let's go to the whiteboard which we have. go to the whiteboard. Let's try to understand this. See. So let's draw the diagram as well, which we just have above. Try to see how exactly this is working, right? So let's say this is my diagram, 2D grid. We'll draw a small grid only, not a very large one. Okay. Let's say we have some coins here like this: 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. We have 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0. Okay. Now let's say we start from this. So we have to, if what is my, I'll write row and column as well. Correct. Now what is happening? Row double equal to n. So what is my row? Current row is equal to 0. Current column is also equal to 0. Correct. What I'm saying is if row double equal to n minus 1 and column equal to m minus 1. So that is not the case because row is equal to what? Sorry, the n is equal to what here? N is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. And m is equal to what? 1, 2, 3. Correct. So this is not satisfied. This is not satisfied. We'll go on to the right side. We'll calling right with call plus 1. So we will go here. We are going, let's draw it with a different color. So what we are doing is we are going here. Then again, this will be called from here. Now column will become what? Column will become, row will still remain 0. Column will become what? 1. Correct. We will check if this condition is satisfied. If it is not satisfied, this is also not satisfied. Again, we'll call max point, call plus 1. So we'll come here. Correct. Now again, this recursion will be called. Correct. Now what we'll do? We'll see if right, again, this is not satisfied, this is not satisfied. We'll again call this. What will do? It will go to this right. Correct. It will call this. What we are saying, if row double equal to m, column equal to m. So column will become, so here call will become what? Call was 2 earlier. Now call will become what? 3. So as soon as call become 3, this condition is satisfied, will return 0. So this will return 0. So this arrow will return 0. So I'll write 0 here. Now what we'll do, we'll come back onto this one, this point, because from here we have called. So what will go? We'll go down now. So we'll start going down from here. We'll call this down. We'll come here again. We will check. We'll go try to go right. So if I go right, again this will return what? 0. Correct. And it will call down. So we'll go down again. Again this will call right. This will return 0, and it will go down again. Now what will happen once we go down? Again, what will happen? Row double equal to n minus 1, column double equal to m minus 1. So this condition is satisfied. Correct. So what will return? Will return the value as 1. So this will return what? 1. Now what we are doing is we are checking what is the max of right comma down? 0, 1. So we are getting 1 coin from this direction, 0 coin. So which one will prefer? We'll prefer 1 coin. So we are returning what? Max of 0, 1 plus ARR of row call. This is 0. So we can return 1 coin. So this is 1 coin will be returned to this particular one. Correct. Now what is happening after this? Again, this is will be there. So here we are getting 0. Here we are getting 1. So 0, max of 0, 1 is 1 plus what is the area of row call? That is 1. So 2 will be returned here. So we can see that there are 2 coins which can be presented here. Now I'll go here again because see 0, 2. Correct. So this was called from here, right? So what is max of this comma this? Which is 2. 2 plus what is the value here? 0. So it will return 2 here. So maximum points you can go till here is. This is from the right direction. Now we'll start going down. Again, I'll go down. First, I'll go right. Correct. First, I will go right. And again, I will go right. Correct. So this right and we'll go right. And then we'll again go right. So this right will again return 0. We'll go down. This right will return. This again will go down. Right. This will return 0. Again, we'll go down. Here this will return 1, this will also return 1 because it will be same only, right? So this will ultimately return what? 1 plus 1. So this will return 2 to you. Correct? If you go from here, you can go right. So if you go right here, you will again go right. You will get 0 here. you will get from here, bottom one, you will get 1. So this will be 1 plus 0. So maximum 1 you can get from it. You will go down here. You can go right. You will reach here. That is 1. This will return 1. This will also return 1. So max of 1 comma 1 is 1. 1 plus 0 is 1. So this will give you 1. Now max of 1 comma 2 is what? 2. Correct. So 2 plus 0, what you will take? 2. So this will return 2. Now from max of 2 comma 2 is what? Max of 2 comma 2 is still, sorry. Yep. Max of 2 comma 2 is what? 2 only. 2 plus 1 is 3. So you will get 3 from this. Now you will start going and exploring the downward direction. Once you start going down, you will again go right, right, right. You will get the coins. Similarly, you will go down and then right, 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 and keep on taking the max. And finally, whatever is the max you will get from here, and whatever value you have here, you will take the max of both of those and do plus 1. You will get the answer, which is equal to 4. So if you see, there is 1 here, 2 here, and third one is here, and then fourth one is here. So you can follow either this path or you can follow this path to get the answer. So I hope it is clear to everyone. If you have any questions or if you have any doubt, I'll again paste this code so you can actually take a look at a later point of time. Do you have any questions or confusion here? Any one of you? Okay. So see, what I've tried to do is we have started from a very basic question of a recursion, and we actually tried to a medium to hard level question of a recursion here. So some of you might not have understood it properly, but you can actually go and take a look at the code which I have written. And also I've covered only the recursion in this class, but there are many more topics which are part of the data structures and algorithm, starting from your basic math question. Then you have arrays, then you have linked list, you have stacks, you have queues, then you have trees, then you have binary tree. Basically tree as a binary tree and a binary tree. Then you have binary search tree. Then you have dynamic programming. Then you have graphs. Then you have strings, and then you have mixed data structure. I forgot some of the math part of it. So there are some maths based question as well. There is searching and sorting as well, and then there is recursion is one part of it, and then there is also some of the questions which are based on hash map and tree maps. So this is the detail. These are the details, or these are the topics which you have to prepare for data structures and algorithm. I mean, to get a good hold over the data structures and algorithm. And for the same thing, what we have done is, let me actually share my screen. So we have launched a course for people, and then you can actually take a look. So we have this course in data structures and algorithm. It is completely in Java, and here you can see the price is 22,000, but we are giving you 80% discount at this point of time. So you can actually subscribe to our courses. You can actually take this course by applying the coupon code as HACKIT80. I have sent it on the message. You can actually copy paste it if you want. So the lecture will cost you around 4,400 something. So we are actually giving it at this discount. I have created this course. This is from the very basics. If you are newbie, if you have to learn the data structures, we have covered everything in the detail. There are assignment questions as well, which are written in as a part of the doc. So you can actually solve the assignment questions as well. The solutions are discussed for each of the question as a part of the doc. So you can take a look at that as well. We have other courses as well, which is one is related to system design. So this is the current course which we are running. Then we have another course which is system design, which is completely ready. We have around in this particular course, data structures and algorithm, we have content of around 50 to 60 hours. It's a detailed lecture. We have covered every topic in detail. In system design, again, we have a content of around 30 hours, and we have tried to cover all the important topics which are part of the system, high-level system design. We have Python. If you are good in Python and if you want to learn Python advanced, then you can take this course. There are other courses as well. For Python basics, we have course. We have low-level design and design pattern course. We have advanced data structure and problem solving. So if you are very comfortable with the basics of data structures and algorithm, you can actually take a look at this course as well, which is advanced data structures. We have discussed advanced problems in this, some of the algorithms which we have discussed. I'll give you one or two examples. So I have discussed how to create a trie or a ternary search tree, or there are Rabin-Karp on KMP algorithms is a part of this. Then there are other things as well, like parent rank algorithm. So all this is discussed as a part of advanced data structures and algorithm. And there is a DSA in Python as well. There is a Python basic course as well. So we are actually giving a lot of discount at this point of time. If you have any questions, you can actually reach out to me or Nikhil. So here are our contact numbers. And I would request everyone to do one thing. If you actually liked our lecture and if you have learned something out of it today, please give us a feedback on whatever platform you have joined. So that your fellow mates or your friends can also get a help from us. One thing I have not mentioned is that uh, these are the recorded lectures, these are the video lectures, but it doesn't mean that you won't get any assistance or any help at a later point of time as well. We'll keep on having the sessions for the subscribe for the people who have subscribed to our sessions, and we are also planning to bring like a lot of key speakers on our platform. If you'll go through our platform, we have an events list, so you can actually check our events list, and we are regularly conducting events on the platform, so you can actually join. If you're interested, you can join for the further sessions as well, which are for free. And later on, there will be many more lectures which will be for free for the people who have actually taken our courses. And I mean, we have tried to cover everything in detail in these courses. So if you'll take a look, I mean, you'll get a good glance of it. And if you're interested, you can actually subscribe to our courses. I mentioned again, the coupon code is HACKIT80. You can directly apply and purchase the courses from the website. And you can also, I mean, these are lifetime. These courses will be available for you for the lifetime. There are no fixed number of use for these courses, so you can actually whenever you have to prepare again for your interviews, you can actually go to our lectures. So yeah, this was on a high level about the data structures and recursion. There will be many more sessions. We'll take more topics as well going forward. There will be sessions which will be conducted for specific sessions which will be conducted for the people who have actually subscribed to our courses. And you can take a look at our other courses as well, and please do give us a feedback on the platform from wherever you have joined. For the people who have joined recently, I mean joined after I've done my introduction, so just to quickly tell you about myself. So I'm Prakhar Agrawal, and currently I'm working as a SG3 at Google, and the complete session is sponsored by Hackstack. Hackstack is a platform where you can find the online lectures and videos, and this will help you to improve your skills and to prepare yourself for the interviews of big tech giants like Facebook, Google, Amazon, Microsoft. And we have created these courses focusing on those things only. So we have started from basics, and we have tried to actually reach to the advanced level in all these courses. So I mean, it will be helpful even if you are at the intermediate level. It will be helpful even if you are at the basics level. If you are at the advanced level, then you can actually take a look at advanced DSA courses and problem solving questions. Okay, so that's it from my side. I hope you enjoyed the session. There were a couple of questions from one of the person. I'll try to answer those. If you have any other questions, you can put it on the chat. I'll be happy to take it. Or if you can unmute yourself and you can ask those questions as well. There were a couple of questions from someone. Let me try to answer those. Case and function call recursion is implementation is, yeah. So basically terminating condition is your base case. You can call it as a base case as well. So you always put the base case in your recursion. Does recursion has impact on space complexity due? Yes. I mean, I won't say that it's definitely you are using extra space because you're using the system's stack memory, but it should be fine because it's a system memory, and you can say that it's a temporary memory. You won't consume it. You will consume it only till the time your recursion is called. But yes, it actually takes an extra memory. So you can, if someone asks you that whether there is any memory involved in the recursion, you should say that yes, the memory is involved, and it's a system memory. We are using the system stack to actually make a call to our recursion functions. So these were the answers. There were a couple of other questions. When would I make a decision to use recursion and not to use? Any pattern or trick? See, that's what I told you, right? Whenever you can create a tree-like structure, right? Whenever you can create a tree-like structure, that question can mostly go onto the recursion. Most of the questions which can be solved with the help of recursion can be solved with the iterations as well, but there are some complexities sometimes in recursion and iteration. The way to practice it is that there is no particular trick, I would say, but yes, if you do like a bunch of questions, you will understand whether this question can be solved with the help of a recursion or not. And the other way to figure out whether this question can be solved with the help of recursion or not is that whenever you see that you can create a terminating condition and you can keep on calling the same function again, and there is a terminating condition, it will return back some response to you, and you can actually use those values, returned values. Then you can actually think of a recursion for those particular questions. Also, in a real world, when writing the software, where do I leverage to use recursion? There are bits and pieces where you actually use recursion. It's difficult to point out a particular example where you will call a recursion, but let's say if you want to, a very simple thing is if you want to perform a BFS in your BFS is breadth first search, and you have to perform a breadth first search, then you will definitely go ahead with the recursion instead of creating a stack, your own stack, because creating your own stack sometimes complicate your things. So there are places where you can use the recursion. It will be difficult for me to point out a particular example, but as I mentioned, right, like in a BFS or a question like the questions that you have seen today, right, you might have to generate some subsets or something like that in your basically in your project as well, right? So in those cases, you can actually use the recursion. So, yep, those are the answers to your question. There was one new message. Yep. Thank you, and thanks a lot for joining. Hope you enjoyed the session and you got to learn something out of it. As I mentioned, take a look at our courses, and if you are interested, do purchase it. We are running this offer for now, and I mean, if you'll see on the website, the offer is only for 50%. So the people who have joined the session, we are giving discounts to only those people, and this coupon code will expire by end of the next week. So take a look at our courses and do give us a feedback from whichever platform you have joined. Thanks a lot. Thank you again. Thanks for joining. Stay safe, stay happy, and have a good night. And yep, that's it. Thank you once again. Bye. Take care. How many recordings are there in each of the courses? Are these self-paced courses? Yes, these are self-paced courses. You can run it at your own speed. And how many recordings are there? To answer your question, in the first course, we'll have around 21 to 22 recordings. Each recording will last for around 2.5 to 3 hours. As I mentioned, right, the course is of around 50 hours, 50 to 50 hours, 55 hours. So yes, and in the second one, we have around 12 or 13 recordings. Again, each of the recording is of around 2 to 2.5 hours. So again, it comes down to your around 30 hours of content. So 12 to I think we have 12 or 13 lectures uploaded in the system design basics to advanced. And again, it depends on courses to courses. So if you'll open the courses, you'll be able to see how many topics are listed in each of the courses. Okay. So will there be a premium live classes? Yes, we'll eventually we'll have the premium live classes for the people who have actually subscribed to these courses. So thank you once again. Is there any other question? Are there any other questions from anyone? Okay, cool. Thank you. I hope that the session was helpful for you people. Thanks. Bye. Take care. I'll end the meeting now if there are no further questions.